Well, fast am I, good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Mannin line for Friday. It's open line through until 1 o'clock. Alex in the chair sitting in for Andy today. Still trying to get rid of that frog in his throat, so get well soon, Andy. So, another U-turn for the Cannon administration. MiCards are staying, but kicked down the road to the next administration. Put into the too difficult to deal with tray. What's your opinions on that? And also, whose fault is it that a lot of our registered properties are falling into disrepair? Why is there no help available when there used to be? Is that government's fault as well? Well, apparently it seems so. Any other topic, of course, you'd like to talk about this afternoon, do give me a call. 66 13 68. It'd be good to chat to you on air. Or, of course, you can send a text 166 177. However, I just warn you, I never get to text quick enough because if there's people on the phones, we go to them first. I was just mentioning there about the registered properties. And this was something that popped up as I was driving to work because I passed the Groudle Hotel, the old Groudle pub there many mornings. It's a very sad state of disrepair, and it's a Bailey Scott building. And it's historical, it's registered, it was built at the opening of the Manx Electric Railway in 1893, and it's had a number of different proposals to demolish it, replace it with, I think, 5 or 6 modern box houses, and thankfully, in my opinion, they've not gone through. However, it did get me digging around that there was once a fund that was administrated by the planning department where owners of historic registered buildings could apply for grants to enable them to maintain and do essential works to their buildings. Because a lot of the time, of course, people, it's not their fault that they've maybe inherited a building that is a registered building. The grants were usually from around £5,000 to £25,000, and it was started in the early 2000s. And when the pot ran out, it was never renewed. And now there is no assistance for people who own historic buildings to help maintain them. Now, England, Scotland and Ireland all still have such schemes currently in operation, and it's just us that doesn't. Now, looking back, that Marlene Hendy, when she was an MLC, did a detailed report to Tynwald, which included a recommendation on this issue before the report was debated in Tynwald. But Council of Ministers, ahead of the debate, gave their response to the recommendation, and they said there was no money to help owners of registered properties. They said that they were unable to support the recommendation. The recommendation has significant financial implications, and the report makes no assessment as to how this should be funded or the scope or cost of such a scheme, which I remind you, of course, was already in operation prior to this. It did say that the DEFA have historically operated a grant scheme for repairs to heritage properties. They say that a scheme could be explored, but there are no funds available. Yep, the standard line we hear from the government on a regular basis, there's no money. And then, of course, like when the MiCard system is a problem, we find money, don't we? It's interesting. So, I'd be welcoming your opinion on that. Should we be tidying up our island? Should we be making the island look better in terms of the built environment and heritage? If you're looking at buildings and they look tatty, well, we've taken away the assistance to maintain them. Do you think that should be brought back? I would love to hear your opinions on that. Lovely to hear, as always, from Julian, who's up early today. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Alex. Hope you were scraping the ice off your car windscreen this morning.
I certainly was, yes. It was a little on the chilly side. I even put some gloves on today, Julian.
Oh, yes. You better just close your eyes and pray for global boiling, I reckon.
Go on.
Speaking of which, during last week's sitting of Tynwald, the chair of Manx Utilities, John Wannenberg, gave an interesting answer to a question from Jason Morehouse. And that question was, how much has been spent on energy brought to the island using the interconnector in each of the last 3 years, and what percentage of this was classified as green? Mr. Wannenberg answered that during the 2022 to 23 financial year, £8.2 million was spent on imported electricity. The following year, it was 5.3 million, so it's dropping. And finally, last year's financial year was 3.5 million. Mr. Wannenberg then went on to say that of that first year, the 8.2 million during 22, 11% of it was certified as green. The following year, that grew to 23%. And then finally, last year, it ended up at 27% was green certified. He then went on to say, in short, that tells us that the demand for green, clean energy is rising amongst the businesses. Well, hang on a minute, Alex. if you think of the imported electricity spend as like a cake,
Mm.
that cake has shrunk by 57% in the last 3 years then, because it started off at £8.2 million of imports, and then it shrunk over half to 3.5 million. So you've got a little cake now, haven't you?
Yeah, I suppose.
So
I suppose you could look at it in. I suppose it depends on how you actually frame it, because of course there's always damn lies in statistics. Is that whilst the cake is smaller, possibly the percentage of green energy that is being provided has gone up. So I suppose you could say that both appraisals of the situation are correct, depending on which viewpoint you're looking at, aren't you?
yeah, but you can get through this by looking at the amount of money.
Mm.
So 11% of the 2022 number would give you about 900 grand's worth of spend on green energy in the 22 year. So if you look at last year, it was 27% of a much smaller cake, which is 27% of the smaller amount of 3.5 million is 940 grand. So it was 900,000 spent on imported green energy 3 years ago, and it's 940,000 now. And imported electricity has gone up with inflation. So it would be like buying a box of chocolates 3 years ago for £9, and then it's £9.40 now. You're not going to get any more chocolates, are you?
Definitely not. They're 3 years older,
So-
Julian. No.
Correct. So why is the MUA chair trying to say that the green demand for businesses has gone up then?
It's a good
You can't
question.
escape this maths.
No.
You cannot escape the maths.
Can I ask Julian, because the other thing that this statement sort of brought about a question in my head is that on the Mannin line we've discussed many times, and you've heard the stories about how we are selling a lot of electricity to the UK, and then yet we're also bringing electricity back in. Where's the balance, effectively, like the balance of payments? Because one, we're talking about how we've got a surplus of energy here and we're selling it off to the UK, and then in the next breath we're bringing a load in from the UK at the same time.
Well, you've got to ask the question. But you know what? There's another side to this.
Go on.
If you look at, there are 3 or 4 entities on the island. You've got a big e-gaming server that's based near the power station.
Mm-hmm.
You've then got 2 big internet providers. I'm calculating that if you take them together, they're almost a half of all the electricity that's being used on the island.
Well, where do you get your
So
stats
if
from
you've
for that one, in terms of the usage, or is that just a gut feeling?
What you do is you look at the specifications, say, for the one down in Ballasalla.
Yeah.
You look at what they've done, and then you take an idea of what they're using, which is somewhere around between 15 and 20 megawatts, which is a lot when you think that the island's average is between 40 and 50, and with a maximum of 75 in the winter when we need more electricity for stuff like cooking and keeping warm and stuff.
Yeah.
So you run the numbers, they're running all the time. It's not, like, for example, if you or I use electricity, you go to sleep, you've got you've got your mobile charger on, but you're not using a lot of power.
No.
If you've got an e-gaming massive great facility with 750 racks that are each using multiple houses worth of power each rack, they are supplying e-gaming app games with people spinning roulette things in China, who are 8 hours in front of us, or California, who are 8 hours behind us, or wherever. So they need power 24/7, and they need loads of it.
Well,
So it's hardly surprising that those businesses are drawing massive amounts of power locally.
Well, in terms then, Robert, I don't think there's any debate about the fact that, yes, big servers do draw a lot of power. And depending on whatever business you're in, whether it's e-gaming or, if you're in Silicon Valley and one of the big tech firms like Google and things like this. So are you suggesting then that we should try and cut down our power usage, or in terms of having to feed that hungry beast, which is a big part of our economy, are you suggesting we need to find a different way of power generation? Because I'm sure someone would argue then that if we're powering all these hungry servers, we need green energy to top up what we do to allow us to feed them without pollution.
Yeah, but the whole philosophical thing about this argument from the green side is the world's going to end in 10 years if we don't stop emitting. So we use a tiny fraction of the power station for per capita, per head, the stuff that you and I are using.
Right.
There's a massive amount of electricity that's being produced for people on apps in wherever in the world gambling. So when you have David Quirk coming on, and you were on that program, and he said we're one of the worst emitters in the world, and I have brought up since you've been on that the reporting of the per capita emissions in Denmark are nowhere near as stringent as we are. We're volunteering all the CO2, all the methane, all the fluorinated gases. Denmark doesn't do that. They're only reporting CO2 locally. They don't even do the transportation boats going in and out of their territorial seawater.
There is actually, in fairness, I agree on one point here with you, Julian, although it's not my point to have a point, is that on a smaller level, there is a lot of posturing when it comes to this. For example, I'll take it on a very small level. At Groudle, at the railway, we used to use Welsh steam coal. Best steam coal in the world in terms of firing steam engines. The Welsh government, to improve their green credentials, have said, no, you can't dig up any coal in Wales anymore. That's it. Close your pits. So steam railways and heritage steam lines in the UK are now having to import it from Venezuela and Poland, which, of course, has got a bigger carbon footprint. But as far as the Welsh government are concerned, it's a big tick on their box because it's not their carbon footprint. It's just created a bigger one somewhere else. So there is an element of those games being played around the world, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I love those electric trams and the steam railway as much as you do. But it wouldn't surprise me if there's a plan somewhere to stick Bombardier modern trams between Douglas and Ramsey and get rid of all that old stuff and in the name of being more efficient or whatever. So, there's all kinds of cultural heritage things that are being ditched all the time here. But, going back to my first point.
Go on then.
Why is the MUA chair trying to paint this picture that there's this demand for green energy on the island at the same time that they're trying to shoehorn in this wind farm down in the south of the island, when clearly from his own figures, if you actually go and have a think about it, 11% of 8.2 million and 27% of 3.5 million works out at almost the same amount of green imported energy. And you can't, it's not deniable. So perhaps he can, kind of explain his figures a little bit more carefully.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Julian. I've got a full switchboard, so I shall move on, but you've made the question, and maybe we'll hear from Mr. Wannenberg. So have a great day. And just to say, by the way, that although they are modern, Bombardier do make very good trams. Just thought I'd let you know.
They do, but I'm not sure if I'd want to get rid of our lovely heritage ones.
I agree with you there. Thanks so much, Julian. Have a great day. Take care. Lovely to have Julian on, as always. We've got Quirky on. Hello, Quirky. How are you?
How you doing, mate? Alex. I'm just going to thank, I may not be popular today, I'm going to thank the Chief Minister for intervening yesterday regarding the MiCards. And I'll tell you for why. There were 730 people out there who were going to get cut off in December. I thought that was a horrific sort of thing. And I'm glad that people had a campaign and some of the backbenchers, never mind some of the council ministers. And the Chief Minister now has said it's not going to happen. We're going to roll the card over. Now, what I was going to try and say out to people out there now, how do we encourage people to be more receptive to the post office? Should we be looking at maybe, because the banks are giving us all a hard time, getting difficulty to the banks. I was talking to somebody yesterday who struggling because they can't drive anymore, and their bank is in Douglas and can't get down, and would have to get a taxi to come in there and just get some money out, just small amounts of money. Before you say anything, they don't do the card machine. They haven't got a card machine. So the money's in the bank. So I just wonder what the politicians, now they're at some sort of level now, let's look at the post office, see what we can do. I was disappointed with Stu Peters the other day when he said they can get a bank account, they can do this, get a credit card, do this, or that, or the other. So a lot of people can't do that in the Isle of Man, and I know lots of them. And they've been talking to me about it. And even the other day, there's a lady rang me up yesterday and said to me, her money's in the bank. It's in down in Douglas. She doesn't drive anymore. She's packed in driving, and the only way to get money out is to go down to the bank in a taxi. Is that a state of a place to be? Where if at the post office they still want an onken, and I'll just slip in the other thing, Alex, if I can, is regarding the tax discs. I think they should keep the tax discs going, on vehicles to make sure. A couple of things on that is where we can identify when vehicles are coming out of date. The biggest thing in the island is the population, or the police, or the second or third police force, aren't they? They go around and they say, "Don't forget your tax disc is out of date," and that's what it should be.
But David, in terms of, and once again, I'm playing devil's advocate. A lot of what you've suggested there, in terms of keeping the MiCard system going and how we support post offices more, and not getting rid of tax discs. Surely there's got to be an element of change as time goes on. These are practical services that, God willing, in about 30 years' time, I'm of the generation where I don't use banks. I rarely use a post office. I do everything digitally, and lots of the new post office services that have been produced digitally I find very useful. So there is going to be this change in population. So we can't. Tax discs are a prime example. They've moved over to the UK, and they seem to be working quite successfully over there, and it's cut down costs. Surely there is an element to the fact that change has to come, and you have to manage that change, not just keep on saying, like with the MiCard system, they've said, we'll keep it for 12 months, and you could probably argue there's an element of politics there, that the head of the government tells us we've got no money, but we'll sweep in on a white charger to save this politically unpopular decision. But there's no plan as to how we're going to change it and move on, because at some point, if they're wanting to get rid of it, they're going to have to find a different solution and bring people on board. So what would you see as being the sort of change journey that people are going to have to go on?
Well, the first thing is you do it well ahead of time, don't you? And the MiCard was done well ahead of time, and it went on for a year. But they never did anything, as far as we know, and we weren't told about anything, and people weren't warned about anything on that. And how can you bring people at an elderly age, you know what I mean? Because we're all getting older. You and me, Alex, are getting older all the time. But one day we may not have a car, and then you've got to rely on friends, family, or whatever, or the internet. And a lot of people can't work it. But I was just going to say, we have a lot of people in the Isle of Man. We're coming up to an election next year. Let's think of things where we can tell these politicians, or the ones that are knocking on your door, this is what I want you to do, and you to do, and you to do. Let's see if they can do it. The final thing I was going to say, Alex, before I forget, is why is the Minister for DOI dragging in the building down at the bottom of Summerhill in with the tracks for the extension to the horse cars?
Tramway Terrace, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would argue it's probably to make it a more convincing business case. I mean, don't get me wrong. My personal opinion is the fact that we've given them the money and the track should have been finished. And if there was any ethical nature in that department, it should have been done, and it shouldn't be coming back for more money. But that's my personal opinion. So I would argue that.
Right. And my cynical view is that she's dragging in that building in there now to make it more money that they haven't got. So she's got an excuse to say no, it's not going to happen, because it's going to cost X or Y. We don't know. She's not confessed how much it's going to cost for the building itself. They've had a report done, I'm led to believe. It's not in the public domain. Everybody else has to put their planning applications in the public domain of how much it's going to be and what it's going to cost to the taxpayer.
In fairness, David, the news story stated they're waiting on a heritage assessment report. So that hasn't arrived. It's due in the next week or so, according to the report. So whilst the report might have been done, it hasn't arrived yet. So that's.
I'll give you a ring in a month's time. I bet it's still not done.
Okay. Thanks for that, David. Lovely to speak to you. Take care. Right. Always great to speak to Quirky there. Right. Howard is on. We're talking about abandoned buildings. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Alex. You'll probably be aware of this. When it was the old Marina Hotel that's on the promenade, just outside of Jack's Smokehouse.
Yes.
It was in a dreadful state. If you stood on the promenade, you could see up through the roof, see right through. People complaining. And I don't know if it was the council or the government. It was one or either. Brought it to task, and they said they were going to do something with it. It was in a hell of a state. Anyway, the company or person who owned it had put in for planning permission, and the next story was it was due for demolition and a new building going up with apartments. So it's still boarded up, but now you see on the front of it for sale. So not only have they neglected to do anything with it, they've enhanced the selling price of the building because it comes with planning permission.
Mm.
But it's still boarded up. It looks like it is a slum, and it must be detrimental to the buildings either side of it.
So do you feel then that what they've done is effectively they're selling a development opportunity, which I presume, if the owner of the building doesn't want to spend the money on doing that development, or might not even have the money, we always assume people who own property have cash, that they're getting it off their hands and hoping someone else is going to take up the mantle and maybe restore it, surely?
Well, I don't know about restore it. It must be beyond that now because those buildings are stone built.
They are, yes.
And I was looking on the YouTube recently, and they're knocking a myriad of buildings down in Blackpool, and they're brick built, so they're much more modern. But that would have to be built with respect to the area that it's in, the structure, the style of the structure. So this is tying the hands of the people that own it, and he now has an enhanced property simply because now somebody will come on and say he never got it or they have got it or otherwise. Please, would they? The building itself applied, and I'm saying they received planning permission for a rebuilding. But that building, how long is it going to stay like that in I won't even say semi-derelict, it's derelict.
But in terms of, Howard, of trying to get the...
On our promenade.
Yeah, in terms of trying to make the place look tidier and better, and you pointed out there that obviously I think, can I call it an incentive in terms of the fact that, it's more appealing to developers if they've got that support behind them, planning permission behind them. Surely then, if it takes incentives to do up buildings, is that an issue? Because the Villiers site has remained dormant for years. The completion of the AXA Equity and Law Villiers part has never got done. And it's only now through support working with government in terms of, the grant scheme.
25%.
Exactly, that we're getting a building there. Now, whether you like the design of the building or not, we could be talking for hours on that. But surely those incentives, or if they've been granted planning permission, they're selling it on. If that's going to improve the situation, does the ends not justify the means?
Well, yes, in that respect. But how long is it before somebody will buy that property? And will the planning permission expire in the meantime?
Well, that's a good point. You'd expect the planning permission, which is what normally I think about 3 years off the top of my head. You would expect somebody who wants to develop it to snap it up because that's the deadline to get something done, isn't it?
Yep. And we have another one at the other end on the Queen's Promenade, one of the larger hotels there, and that's all boarded up, and the the boards are blackened to give the appearance of windows being there. And that's one of the double-fronted ones. These are buildings that are on our promenade, and it's making it look, well, as you say, like a slum.
Yeah. It is difficult, isn't it? Because the whole promenade was built at the booming tourist industry. All those buildings were built by private enterprise, and to a degree, most of them have lost their original purpose. So I suppose it's about trying to find a new purpose, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, many, many years ago, when the tourist trade was dropping off, and you might be too young to remember it, but a lot of the hotel owners wanted to turn those buildings into apartments, as we call them today, flats, and they were stopped. So they could have been flats now, like a large part of the Queen's Promenade, which is a respectable end, and that was stopped. I would say that would be in the 1960s, 70s, around about that time. But they were stopped by the government and stopped by the corporation.
Oh, right, okay.
But they weren't allowed to proceed with the change of use.
Right, okay.
But it'd been interesting to see what the situation is for that marina, because that must have been empty, I would say, a minimum of 10 years.
Okay, Howard. Well, we'll keep a watching brief, and if you do spot anything, of course, do let us know as you're passing. So we'll see what happens.
Good luck with with your Welsh call.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Howard.
Take care.
Always lovely to speak to Howard. A few of your messages quickly before I go for a break, and then I've got Bonzo on the phone. That Cece's been on saying, Alex, I'm sure I'm not alone. One less worry. Feel relieved to hear about the MiCard stressing the people plan. I believe a future uptake is in need for MiCards as banks are closing accounts or making it hard to get one. Plus, not everyone wants a bank account in the first place. Cash is king. Thank you, Cece, for that one. And Cliffy D says, many buildings in Ramsey are in need of tidying up. Look at the brewery site, the Britannia. I have to say that when the Manx Electric Railway brings tourists into Ramsey and it's faced with the Britannia, it's terrible. It truly is awful. It's like being taken to a nuclear town. I do feel sorry for the people of Ramsey that is their welcome mat to tourists arriving on our heritage railways. So, yeah, I'm with you, and especially when the other areas of Ramsey are beautiful. Let's have a look here. That Alex, a topic I'd like to discuss firstly isn't wonderful. That are we going to have a way of getting to Ireland? We need to have proper ID prevention service to stop illegal immigrants that are in Ireland coming here. I was shocked when I was in Kenny this year, and I know it's a massive problem in Ireland. So could we, the people of the Isle of Man, have some reassurance on, I presume that's effectively border control? Well, we do have a border force now, don't we? And in terms of more sailings to Ireland, they'll be regulated, I presume, the same way as the services to the UK. Thank you to Texter 382 saying, Alex, don't engage in combat with Julian or Juan. It's just boring. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing my job. Phil in Onken says, Alex, having heard the news today, my 5-year-old grandson has stopped having school lunches shortly after the changes to the lunch menu. He used to enjoy the meals, including the desserts, but now takes packed lunches. Well, that is the thing. I have to say, as a parent, okay, it's a bit like when media corporations and governments lecture you, and you turn around and go, I'll make my own decision, please, in a free country. If you're not going to give my child food that they enjoy, well, I will give them food that they enjoy. And maybe a lot of parents are doing that. Thank you to Mike, who says, the coal in the UK is harder to get to, and it's not good coal. The coal that was better fuel has gone since the Romans took it. That's why it's difficult and not worth retrieving. Oh, those Romans, those pesky Romans. Thank you very much to, who's this? Hi, Alex. I like the thought that Rob Collister wanted to put an income tax on dilapidated buildings, as many of these buildings are in a diseased state. I don't think diseased. But anyway, basically an income on the dead. Who will you want to tax next? The unborn, says Alfred. Well, in fairness, Alfred, I suppose the point of being, if you're an owner of a building, you have a responsibility to maintain it. And if a way for the government to be able to either use a carrot or a stick to make you maintain the building, the stick might have to be charging you a tax until you tidy it up. But I haven't got the details of Rob Collister's proposal, but I presume that's what you're referring to. 66 13 68. It's the Mannin line open till 1. Back in a mo.
Get ready for an unforgettable evening with Manx Radio Motorsport. Join us for Journey to a Dream live at the Queen's, hosted by me, Beth Espy, on Wednesday the 10th of December from 6 p.m. at the Queen's Hotel in Douglas. Experience exclusive rider Q&As with 3 races, live music and great refreshments, all powered by Ocals. Tickets are free but limited, so head over to motorsport.manxradio.com to reserve yours now. Don't miss this high-octane night celebrating the spirit of the road. Journey to a Dream, live at the Queen's.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly and much more when you visit Watson's Nurseries this Christmas. Watson's Nurseries for cut and potted Christmas trees, including non-drop at great prices, along with decorative festive wreaths and superb gift ideas like trees, fruit trees, large specimen trees and shrubs, and gift vouchers. They also stock logs and coals suitable for fires or wood-burning stoves, with delivery available. Call 801 812. Find something festive at Watson's Nurseries, Greba, on the Peel side of Hawthorne Inn.
For a merry Manx Christmas, give a gift that keeps on giving. From days out to gifts handmade on the Isle of Man. There's something for everyone at the Manx Museum and House of Mannin Heritage Shops, where every purchase helps care for our incredible island. Also available online at manxnationalheritage.im.
In life, we plan for birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. But what about planning for the unexpected?
I've worked hard all my life. I want to make sure everything's in place for my family.
Man Benham understands. We specialise in enduring powers of attorney, mental health receiverships, and are there for you when mental capacities decline.
Thanks to Man Benham, your legacy is protected.
Secure your family's future today. Visit manbenham.com. Because peace of mind is the best legacy.
Looking to make the most of your savings? Conister Bank offer a range of savings options, from fixed terms of 6 months to 3 years to variable rate notice accounts with notice periods of 95 to 180 days. And choose monthly or annual interest, whatever works for you. For the latest rates and an application form, check out conisterbank.co.im. Conister Bank, celebrating 90 years of community, heritage and connection. Here for the journey. All deposits are subject to status, terms and conditions apply. No early withdrawals permitted. Qualifying deposits made with Conister Bank are covered by the Isle of Man Depositors Compensation Scheme as set out in the Depositors Compensation Scheme Regulations 2010.
Manx Radio's Man in Line through until 1 o'clock. Thank you very much to Stuart, who sent in a WhatsApp, and he said that sorry, not Stuart, Big John in Ramsey. Wind farms. Irrespective of information sourced on the internet, we are clean energy once the initial setup, construction and blades are in place. Clean energy is paramount for our environment, and every station, once constructed, up and running, will be a national asset. Thank you for your contribution on that, Big John. And Anthony has been on saying it's good to listen from far to the programme and hear a variety of opinions. I'm researching places like Derby Castle, the Manx Electric Railway, the Manx Heritage, so listening to different experiences on the Man in Line feels like a journey for me. The conversation from Upper Douglas and the many perspectives from people are uplifting. Oh, that's a very nice comment. Thank you, Anthony. And there's another one here saying, I'd like to share a concern about the care my 15-year-old daughter recently received at Noble's A&E on the 19th of November. Despite showing clear signs of severe illness, she was left sitting in the waiting room for hours before being seen. She was later diagnosed with sepsis and immediately transferred to the children's ward, where it became clear she was also experiencing an adrenal crisis. I'm worried that such a serious situation went unrecognised for so long, and I feel other families should be aware of the risk caused by delays in emergency care. I hope raising this issue encourages improvements so no other child is left waiting whilst dangerously unwell. Thank you for sharing that story with us. I sympathise. I myself got admitted many years ago with sepsis following, shall we say, complications with a burst appendix. So I can seriously empathise with what you've been going through. It is interesting, isn't it, that if you get away from all the politics of how much Manx Care is costing, what Manx Care is doing, should we get rid of Manx Care, was it a bodged experiment that should be got rid of, etc., people's general anecdotal feeling about the hospital and healthcare is one of anxiety when you speak to people, isn't it? That actually, are we getting the healthcare that we deserve and we pay for, and do you trust to be treated, properly in a speedy manner if you need it in an emergency? Because this one correspondent here, obviously, felt that they weren't. Thank you for that. Thank you very much to Desmond, who's complaining that I didn't read out his message, saying climate change is the biggest scam ever. People are being scared by people making millions, saying that people are going to die. Well, I have news for you. We all die. Well, that is true. Yeah, I'm sorry to break that to anybody. But Desmond, thank you very much for your opinion. Also, Texter 507 saying, spot on regarding Tramway Terrace, David. Also agree they shouldn't have been going back to ask for the same money again. Should have the previous business case on file. So all they needed to do was update the costings. And finally, Alex, regarding our border force, it's non-existent as far as I'm concerned, says Texter 500. Anybody can get on the boat, no ID required. So what border force? I presume, I'd like to think that there is intelligence behind the scenes keeping an eye on people. Because let's be honest, the one thing we hear about a lot on the Man in Line is that there are people in control everywhere. So maybe that's what they're doing. Bonzo's been waiting patiently. Hello, Bonzo. How are you today?
Hello. Are there people in control?
Well, you'd like to think so. Either that or it's all just chaos.
Yeah, I mean, I hear all these conspiracy theories, and sometimes I think to myself, well, pleased that there is a conspiracy, because at least it shows that somebody can run a celebration in a brewery.
Well, exactly. Nicely put on the radio, by the way. Thank you very much for
Yes, quite. Well,
yes.
My previous drafting skills come in handy with those kind of things.
MiCards, Bonzo.
But coming to the point, yes, MiCard and the debacle in Tynwald. I'm torn between sympathising to some extent to Alex Allison, and chiding him, but I think a lot of the responsibility resides with Treasury. Alex Allison has been spending a lot of time recently having to stand on his own two legs and defend the indefensible.
Mm.
And anyone can see it with any sort of form of political understanding that trying to close down the MiCard system in this way would be absolutely politically unacceptable, would never get voted through. Through Tynwald, you could see that from space. But for some reason, he's been briefed again and again and again to stand on this particularly small hill to die on, and to take all the flack that's coming from that. Now, I wonder whether that is a question of the fact that Alex himself is rather thinly spread, because since the departure of Michelle Hayward up to being Minister for Infrastructure, there hasn't been a departmental member with specific responsibility for the Social Security Division and these things, and he's having to manage that as well as all the other things that he has to manage as Minister for the Treasury, trying to sort out a budget and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. So it probably hasn't been able to have as much as his attention as he would like. Therefore, he's more reliant on the advice of his civil servants. But I can't believe it beggars belief that a civil service or a Department of Civil Service would want to put their minister in that position. If we'd have done that sort of thing, back in the land before time when I did such things, we'd have been hanging from the flagpoles.
But interesting you point that there, Bonzo. When you say you can't believe that, I think on occasion I have had a wry smile at every time that there is a general election coming around. In about the last 2 or 3 general elections, the DUI minister seems to have had a very unpopular road scheme either started outside their house, shall we say the Ballicle-Ferrick roundabout for Phil Gorn, Glen Alden being resurfaced for Tim Baker, and once can be a coincidence, and you sit there going, it does kind of point to the fact that someone who's unaccountable is dropping someone else in it. Do you think that's just a conspiracy theory or not?
Well, I mean, just observing from the outside, I don't think that some elements of the Department of Infrastructure are terribly enamoured of Michelle Hayward, mainly because she can see through some of their presentations and knows what she's doing. Dangerous idea of having a minister who actually understands things and has ideas. But there's also the other thing, of course, of with Treasury about whether these civil servants themselves really, or some of the civil servants themselves, really understand what is going on. And there seems to be a fundamental lack of grasp in a number of areas. Okay, it's going to be a very difficult budget because, of course, we don't know what's going to really how anything is going to be able to pan out until on Thursday when we know what the UK have done, in particular with VAT and also offshore gaming taxes. And, of course, Alex Allison will be on this programme on Thursday, which he probably is not looking forward to, and I can sympathise with him for that.
So, Bonzo, from your point of view,
I think as we discussed, as you just said earlier about DOI and stuff, I think there are certain areas that have internal difficulties, shall we say, and those internal difficulties, certainly in the Treasury, need to be sorted out right now. We can't struggle on for another sort of 9 months until the new administration.
Okay.
Because God knows where we won't be.
Well, thank you for that, Bonzo. Always lovely to chat to you. I'm going to move on because I've got a few calls to get to, but thanks very much for calling.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Always great to hear from Bonzo. Yeah, are there problems from behind the scenes that are bubbling over? Yeah, effectively is what Bonzo's saying. Thank you to David who texted in on 425 saying, Alex, you need to talk less and listen more. You're very annoying. Okay, well, sorry, Dave, I'm just doing my job. But, there's an off button if you don't like it. Let's have a look. Wilf is on the line. Oh, there we go. It wasn't working for me there, Wilf. Are you there?
Yes, I was falling asleep, actually, listening to you.
Thank you, I love you too.
Yes, yeah. Well, you talk too much. What I was going to say was, about a month ago, I was on and I was warning the people of the island about the reconstruction, what they're trying to do in Ramsey on our quayside.
Yes.
And I said that it was coming up, and the next exhibition was the next day. I had the date wrong. It's now coming up on the 24th to the 28th in the foyer of the town hall.
Yes.
And you're going to get young people down there that isn't old enough to know anything about the harbour to tell you about it. But anyway, that's beside the point. It says it's for flood defences and road reconstruction.
Yes.
Now then, I will turn that on its head in a few seconds. I know all about the flood thing, so that's okay. I can sort that out. The road reconstruction, for months and months now, we've been having 8-wheeler wagons every day coming down here and loading measure-on wagons with the logs that they're cutting down. And you've got it in your head, the road wanted reconstruction. See what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So how the hell does it want reconstruction when we're using it like that, carrying God knows what the weight is? I haven't a clue. But it's many, many tons each wagon load. And all of a sudden, we want reconstruction. Now, this has been going on, talking about reconstruction of our harbour side for the best part of 10 years now. They've come up with various schemes. None of them has been any use. And now, this fresh one, well, I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to go in on the 24th and have a look and argue with them people in there.
The 27th, Wilf.
Eh?
The 27th it'll be open. Thursday the 27th, with department members there from 4 till 7. That's the day you've got to go in.
Well, it says in the paper, they got it wrong in the paper, I think. Then.
Yep.
It says the 24th to the 28th.
Yep. Well, the department officers will be there on the 27th, the people you want to argue with.
Well, there's not a lot of point because I've argued with them at the last meeting, and I shut them down in flames because they haven't a clue what the hell they're doing. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. The quay needs reconstruction, but it's getting used, carrying overweight now every day. So how does it all of a sudden want reconstruction? Now, this thing started off at 2 million something. It's now up to over 6. The same thing. It's up to over 6. So, and they're talking about, well, the last one was a wall 1.3 meters high.
Right.
Where anybody kids in a pram, anybody in a wheelchair, any short people, they couldn't even see the harbour.
So so you've been all negative there, Wilf, and I've allowed you to rant on. What's your solution then that's going to be cheap, easy, stop the flooding, and obviously the road needs reconstructing from heavy wagons, which I'd include, I'd imagine, over the years, skips from Wilf skips as well. They were quite heavy. What's your solution?
No, I'll explain that as well.
Go on then.
The flooding.
Yep.
Okay. Now I said, they said right questions at the last meeting. I said, I'll give you a question. Right now, I said, would you say that the people that installed the electric boxes on the quay and the electric boxes that work the swing bridge, didn't know what they were doing. Well, what do you mean? I said they've set the electric boxes on concrete blocks 20 inches high. Now, I said that cost, God knows, that was maybe millions. I don't know. Would you say they didn't know what they were doing? They didn't do any research first? Because I said, I know how high the tide comes. I've been 81 years at this. And I said, you've been here for 5 minutes and you're trying to tell me how this all works.
But I ask you again, Wilf, what's your solution? You've got 2 minutes. What's your solution?
The solution? 2-foot wall. That's it. Job done.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Wilf. There we go. Wilf has the answer for it all. 2-foot wall. I'm going to try and get Brian in as well. Sorry you've been waiting there, Brian. What can you want to talk about?
Well, I was just picking up on what you said before.
Yep.
But I've been listening to all the comments that have been coming through just recently. Now, Rob Collister's worry about empty buildings, well, he's an MHK, so let's talk about Timble Street School and maybe Park Road School and Summerland site and all the projects that have been lying, looking a mess for donkey's years. Come along the promenade, it looks like a smile with the teeth punched out. So
good analogy.
We've got to start looking at things. Now, then I pick up on all these green issues. Yes, I've got my own view, and I'm not very supportive of the wind farms. Now, I come from an electrical background. I've got qualifications in engineering, but I'm not going to pontificate on that here. If we've got experts, like the experts that decided on the new power station, who are going to guide us into spending millions of pounds, where's the comeback? You know where I came from. Goobate. If he said it was going to come in at that figure, then he had to have a damn good case for it going outside that envelope. It's in the contract. That's what it costs. That's what we're going to pay you. Now, government have covered, when I say government, I mean the civil servants have covered themselves with a great big tortoise shell. They are untouchable now. And we've got heads of department who have cost the island millions of pounds, maybe even billions over the decades, with cock-up after cock-up, and they walk away on a vast pension and a golden handshake. Well, we've got to arrive at a time where incompetence doesn't end up in a reward for the incompetent individual.
So how do we change that, Brian? If we're in this vicious circle where it keeps on happening, how do we change that? How would you like to see that change? Because every new MHK stands there when they're revealing their manifesto and they're canvassing, and I'm sure you were the same when you were trying to stand. They always say they're going to get in there and change, and once they're in the system, it doesn't seem to change.
No, because the vast majority of people, and I wasn't one of them, I happen to have a personal wealth which it isn't going to affect me whether I get the Keys pension and the Keys salary or not. However, 1984, we started paying MHKs. From that point on, anybody with no experience, no qualification, no common sense, but a very happy smile was going to be elected to the Keys and put on a handsome salary and a pension and all the benevolence that goes with it.
Surely, though, that's people being allowed to, do their civic duty. So it's not necessarily the rich and well-to-do can actually be part of the democratic process. I'm playing devil's advocate, obviously.
You see, in years gone by, the only people that were able to stand for the Keys were people who were self-funded. And whether you like it or not, and whether these people feathered their nest while they were in there for their own businesses or not, they did have a fiscal sense, and they could read between the lines, and they kept us on a reasonable course. We need a major reset now because we've been getting away from sustainability for decades.
I'm going to have to cut you off there, Brian, because we're at the end of the show, but good point, well made.
Let me just finish you with this.
Go on then.
Tell me how you can pay £1 million a day, £1 million a day for government salaries. You can't do it. It has to end.
Thank you very much, Brian. We'll end on that one. £1 million a day? Have a great day, won't you?